So my name is Matt Hilliard. I'm a product architect in Appian Engineering. With me is Adam Glaser, Vice President of Product Development. And we're here to talk to you about everything that's new in Appian. Hope you've had a great Appian World so far. We are this developer jam thing. I managed to go to the 11 o'clock session. It's pretty cool. Keep in mind, you can listen to us, but you can watch the slides of our governance friends down there. And we're really pushing the envelope. Come back next year. Just 2 senses doesn't seem like enough. I think probably next year you'll be able to smell the blockchain presentation in addition. So that should be awesome. And honestly, I'm waiting for the time when I have an afternoon full of meetings. Instead of just having one after the other, I can just have all 4 meetings in the same room. Just be switching the headset every time I get boring. Not that you guys should switch your headset. You should keep it tuned on channel 3 here. Of course, we all know that actually the future doesn't look like this. It probably looks more like this. And but the truth is, like, in Appian Engineering, it's not really like this, but I'd like to say it's like this because we have more than 17 product teams working to make our product better every day. So Adam and we have to change channels a lot in order to try to keep tabs on everything that's new. It's kind of hard even for us with so much going on, so I know it can be challenging for you guys out there. So we're going to walk you through that and get you up to date. First, quick review. We do 4 releases a year, and we number them with the year 2018, followed by the number of the release. There's 4. So 18.2 is going to be coming out in June of this year. 18.1 was released in February. So most of what we're going to talk about is from 18.2. We'll definitely cover some stuff from 18.1. I know a lot of you aren't on that release yet. And now, we haven't released 18.2 yet. Not all this is final as far as the exact look and feel and so forth, but you're getting the early look. So this presentation can tend to be a big list of stuff. So we decided to organize it by things that Appian values in enterprise applications. So we believe at Appian that enterprise applications, maybe counterintuitively, should be beautiful. We believe that they should be easy to design. We believe that in 2018, enterprise applications need to be smart. And they should be flexible to fit into your organization and your IT landscape. So we're going to walk through each of these things. Now, none of these are like features that we're kind of delivering. It's not like in this release we've made Appian flexible and now we're just going to move on to other things. These are virtues that we strive for in every release. So not only are these, does this give you an idea of how the 18.2 release is making things better, but this is things that we're going to be striving for in the future releases later this year and next year and beyond. So really excited by everything we have to share with you. Adam is going to get us started by talking about beautiful.
Thanks.
Adam?
All right, so beautiful software might sound a little weird, a little lofty, maybe esoteric. So I want to bring it down to a practical level that we can talk about, and I'll do it by way of example. So first, I want you to think about a piece of enterprise software, an application you've had to use recently. Maybe it's one you use infrequently, like filing your expenses, or maybe it's one you have to use every day as part of your job. And I don't just want you to think about the software, think about how you felt while you used it. Did it feel intuitive, like when you went into it, you knew exactly what you were going to find where and what to do? Did it feel efficient, like you could flow effortlessly through it? And was it enjoyable? Would you have liked to keep using it if you could? Or did you run away as quickly as possible back to your happy place, which like me is probably your email with 2,400 unread messages? Most likely you were thinking about something like this. Now the names and faces have been hidden to protect the guilty, but you got to understand, this is very common, right? The kind of vomit of buttons and tabs unceremoniously dumped on the screen, weird names like multi-channel console, that's tantalizing, I don't know what happens if you click on it, I never will. Or maybe it was something like this, where everyone loves display organization number 331, and a very common activity like create or modify a ticket is buried under the extremely obtuse STA add-ons menu. Or finally, it could be something like this, which is actually honestly getting a little bit better. But by now you're probably wondering, why does all enterprise software come in different shades of blue, and what's with all the boxes? We actually think about this stuff a lot, and there's a reason that enterprise software applications suck. There's actually 2 reasons. One is that it assumes a hostage user base, and to be honest, we have to use them to do our jobs. And the other is that they were built back at a time where people didn't know to think enough about user experience. At Appian, we reject the idea that enterprise software is utilitarian. We embrace the fact that your users, our customers' customers, have higher expectations because of the tons of consumer applications that they're accustomed to using in an increasingly competitive landscape. And we let those expectations push us to think about what enterprise software, what your users' users should really be experiencing. What's that? Okay. Is this better? I'm good? Okay. All right, sorry. No, it's okay. I want everyone to hear me. This is really important. So, what do we think enterprise software applications should be? They should be this visual and intuitive, where icons, images, font colors come together to create focal points for your users, and they can interact with those applications in predictable ways based on other software that they're accustomed to using. We think that it should be clean and approachable, that software applications should be designed with the user in mind so they can make a pretty complex task like taking in a ton of data on a form into a guided and efficient experience. And we think they should be this rich, this dense with information, and dynamic, not just based on who the user is, but what the data is and what they're there to do at that time. We think that actions that you can take should be seamlessly embedded on the screen and not buried under layers of menus and submenus. And finally, we think enterprise applications should go where the users are and not the other way around. We see increasing demand for the mobile-enabled workforce, and we're committed to meeting it. We believe that there shouldn't be a distinction or degradation in the type of applications that the mobile users are allowed to use compared to their desk jockey counterparts. And thanks to the investment we make in our interface technology, we insist that there shouldn't be a cost, additional cost, time or money, to bring those applications to your mobile users. And since we're at the end of the conference here, obviously you know, if you've been paying attention, this isn't some prophesized future of what enterprise software is. This is what Appian is today. In fact, everything you just saw and more is most likely possible in the version you're on. And there's a number of things that we're releasing in 18.2 and released in 18.1 I want to walk through to tell you about what we're doing to make the applications you build more beautiful, more intuitive, more efficient, and more enjoyable for your users. And let's start with this. If you've paid attention to the types of layouts and components that we've been releasing since we completed our web UI overhaul back in January of last year, you'll notice a consistent trend of us giving our designers of applications the control they need to lay out interfaces according to the data they know their users are going to be working with. Here's an example. How long is a typical credit card number? About 16 digits, but a verification code, 3 or 4. And while city names can be really long, state abbreviations are always 2 characters. So why would you ever give the same amount of real estate to different elements? With side-by-side layout, which we put out back in 18.1, you can make your interfaces both denser and more walk-up usable by simply telling us what the components are, how much space to give them, and whether you want them to take up the minimum amount of space, like you see here with the icons, or a relative width of space compared to other elements inside the layout. And while sometimes you want dense interfaces packed with information, oftentimes you want to create clear visual distinction between elements on the screen, and that's what card layout does. Card layout, which you can see here, you get a light gray box around the layout, and inside the layout you can have a component or even other layouts full of components. But it doesn't stop there. You can add a link to any card layout, which makes it a gigantic, beautiful, easy, approachable click target for your users, which is great in a progressive disclosure scenario like you see here. And to top it all off, you can make the card layout background any color you want. You can have it pick up the accent color of the site, use one of our out-of-the-box colors, or provide any hex value, and the card will take that color. There's often times where you want to have a distinction between the amount of space that elements in a column should take up. Clearly, the more prominent elements should have more space dedicated to it, and with column widths, we'll actually allocate a fixed amount of space in pixels to those elements. Now that helps in situations that we hear from our users that they need, like different zoom levels or screen sizes. Beautiful interfaces aren't just about colors, they're not just about aesthetics and arrangement. They're also about making sure that you can draw your users' attention to what they need to do at the time they're trying to do it. And color is a way to do that. We don't think color is used in enterprise software enough. Color is a way to use familiar status codes, colors, that they'll see in other applications, or to brand it according to your standards, so that as they transition in and out of Appian to other systems, it's a seamless experience for them. We listen to our customers, and one of the things that we keep hearing is an increasing demand for control over colors. Rich text display in 18.2 you'll be able to have in any color you want. And if you don't know about rich text, it's one of our most popular and flexible display components, from numbered lists to bold to underline. You won't see a single screenshot from Appian in this presentation, or many others that you've seen at the conference, that doesn't use some amount of rich text. And in 18.2 you can have it pick any color you want using different hex values. Now I should note that we actually have a user experience guide that we publish and update with every release of Appian that has expert recommendations on how to and how not to use features like colors, because there are a lot of ways not to use them well. Charts are actually another great way to get a lot of density on the screen of information, but without taking up a lot of space. A chart conveys a lot of information at one time, like context for an action a user should take, or if you add drill down capabilities, it could be the basis of your navigation scheme. We're also adding color control to the chart lines as well. Grid row selection is an example of a feature that people didn't ask for. We paid attention to the type of applications our customers are building, and we saw an opportunity to make them better. This master detail pattern that you see here, where there's a list of some elements and then a user selects one to see more information about it next to it or below it, is something we see very commonly across our customer base. And in 18.2, you'll be able to turn the entire row of a grid into a click target for your users, or you can keep the default of a checkbox next to it. But you'll see here that when you do that, when you use grid row selection, we'll keep the row you clicked on highlighted in the site's accent color so that you can easily see what's been selected. This is an example of why we hate the phrase "don't sweat the little things." Not only does it go completely against my OCD, but really great things come out when you focus on little things. Little things make a big difference. The more control we're giving for people to make denser, bigger interfaces, the more we see the need for subtle elements of visual distinction. And if you didn't catch it, that's a section divider right there. It just cleanly separates, without taking up a lot of space, elements above or below a section, which is how you configure it. You tell us whether you want the section divider to appear above and below, and you get a nice little effect like this. So what do you get when you put it all together? Well, you actually get something like this, which was used in the keynote, where column widths and colors and rich text and icons and images and font sizes come together to create an interface that's intuitive, rich, easy to use, very approachable, but also very, very useful. There's one more thing I have to talk about under beautiful interfaces, beautiful applications. And typically at Appian World, we don't talk about futures. That's kind of a rule we have. I mean, future 18.2 is a little bit in the future, so we're allowed to talk about it. But usually we wouldn't talk much beyond that. But with our mobile apps, we actually want to go one step further and break that tradition and talk about what we've been doing with them. For the last couple of quarters, we've been completely overhauling our mobile applications to bring the full power of Sail to it. We're giving them completely new skins, new experience, better performance. They'll take better advantage of the real estate on tablets and phablets and other form factors. And if you want to participate in the beta of this, I'd highly encourage you to email mobile@appian.com. Just tell us that you'd like to take a look at it, and we'll get back to you with instructions on how to do that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt and talk about why applications should be easy.
Well, applications should be easy, but designing applications should definitely be easy. That's something that we're frankly a little obsessed with at Appian. You heard Matt talk about how he has consistently set us the goal of making app design take half the amount of time it used to take every 2 years, right? And this isn't just sort of a lingo or marketing spiel. This is something we actually test for. You've seen those movies with like the men in the white coats earnestly taking notes while a rat runs through a maze. Well, we actually have designers come in, build applications in front of us. Adam rejected my expense request for a white coat, so I don't have that. But like I've actually participated in these things, watching what people do, looking for ways we can improve. So a lot of what that takes the form of is bringing things together, finding places where we can take 3 steps turned into one, and make things a lot simpler that way. Now, the place we have to start is with Interface Designer and the new drag and drop feature. I know you've seen this in the keynote, but it's certainly worth seeing again. You definitely haven't seen this demo because I made it for this presentation. But for the 3 of you who missed the keynote, you can drag components and layouts out of the palette on the left side, drop them right there in the live view in order to build out your UI. And once it's there, you can use the point and click configuration that we have already had so that you can start setting labels and so forth on those components. And this interface that I'm making is sort of loosely modeled around like a response form for this presentation. So those of you close enough to read the text here can look at these options and decide at this point in our presentation which one best matches your reaction so far. So this is something that clearly just makes things really easy and intuitive, and we're really excited because it doesn't just make things easy to just sort of rearrange components like that. It also makes it fast because there's a drop-down menu you can duplicate or delete, and there's keyboard shortcuts, so I can just duplicate that, and then I can delete them really quickly. This is by far the fastest way to build an Appian UI, which goes to something which you might not realize, that when we make things easier, more intuitive, easier for, say, a new designer to pick up, we also make sure to make things efficient, even for an experienced designer, to make things, make everybody's lives easier. Now, Adam talked about the new components that we've been shipping in the last few releases up to 18.2, and we're making sure that we have a great experience for configuring those new components. So for example, a side-by-side layout, I can just drag a component alongside the other one in order to fill that in. And one thing that's important to emphasize with this drag and drop experience, I know there are a lot of drag and drop UI builders out there. A lot of times they're static UIs or they're kind of notional previews. This is still the same live preview that you've come to expect from our interface design experience. So, we have a lot of configuration settings for how side-by-side should look. I can tweak that in order to get it just right. In order to say, in this case, like Adam mentioned, I want the state to be smaller than the zip code and the city. I can make sure that looks good. I can start bringing in charts and other visual things and see what I think. And this is something we're really excited about also. The opportunity, and I should say, we can directly manipulate, say, multi-columns, right? Right in the live view, I can add and remove columns. So in other words, as you're looking at the thing and you see, I want another column, you can just do it right there, right in the live view. And as I was saying, we think that this really enables a more iterative, agile approach to design, because we know that a lot of you have probably been, I won't ask for hands, but a lot of you have probably been in some interminable meetings where people are arguing back and forth. Should this image be at the bottom of the second column? Or no, maybe the image should be in its own column on the right, like it should be in its own column. Well, you can argue about it for hours, or you can just do it, look at it, and try to make a decision there about which one is better. At Appian, we have the goal of making it easier to change an interface than it is to argue about which way it should be, because it's just much better to just try it out and experiment, be creative. We think that not only is this making things faster to develop, it's actually going to improve the results, because you're going to get better things by virtue of that, being able to try more options, see what you think. Now, with the extra features that we've added to the live view with the overlays and the drag and drop and so forth, occasionally it can be a little overwhelming when you're trying to just understand the interactions of a UI. So we have the new preview tab here, which I'm going to go to in a second in this video, which will show you the same interface. And it doesn't look different because, again, this is the live preview, but it gives you the same interface without the highlights and so forth. You can interact with it here and just get a clean view of what it's going to look like for your end users. Now, I'm switching to a slide with a different UI, but it's the same preview tab. In the upper right there, you can see that we have the form factor preview icons, so you can see what the same interface looks like in a tablet or on a phone. Now, of course, you don't have to do any extra design to achieve that, but in order to make a multi-column layout fit on a phone, we're going to collapse those layouts into a single column. So you might want to look at that and make sure it's not going to be confusing if you have a lot of mobile users. You can do that right there in the designer. No need to get out your phone and test it from the top. So a lot of cool stuff with interface design, but we're just getting started. Another big milestone that I know a lot of you will appreciate is that we now have a single unified design environment. Over the past few releases, we release things iteratively, just like we recommend you do. And so we've been sort of in the process of building out that environment, moving things over. With 18.2, process monitoring has moved to the unified design environment, and that completes it. So there's just a single place to do everything you need to do. But I think Malcolm mentioned this in the keynote. We don't just, it's not a matter of moving things. We're actually rethinking, modernizing, and improving things as we recreate that functionality. So for example, process monitoring. You have a list of the processes that are running on the system, whether this is dev or if you have the right access production. It's right there with the design tools that you use to build them. You can filter on the left, just like you can in the application designer, for process status, who started it, and so on. But new in 18.2 is the idea that you can see this yellow stripe along the top that tells you what errors have happened recently, right? So you can jump straight to them. You get a view like this. You can also pull out the errors from a particular process in this view, and you can see a list of process errors that have happened, filter those by a particular process model or when they occurred. And in general, we have just really made sure to give a good experience for process administration. We know that's something that is really important, both in development and in a production environment. So in the spirit of reducing the distance needed to understand things and see what's going on, the errors that happen with, say, a node, when you're monitoring that process, you can see the errors right there in the process modeler. You can also jump to the process details. So clicking this link, I'll back up. This is a new link in the process modeler when you're monitoring an existing process. You can click that, immediately have access to the process details to see history, the sub-processes, the process variables, and all that. Likewise, for the file menu of a process, you can jump to its parent process, if it's a sub-process, or you can see the actual process model for that process instance. So again, making things more efficient, finding ways to get you to where you need to be faster. And we have the same thing from the other direction. When you're on a process model, there's now links to pull up, or buttons, I guess, to pull up the process instances and the exceptions associated with that process. Now, a few of you will have seen 18.1 already, but for those of you who haven't, since starting in 18.1, we have what we call a quick search, which is there's a button in the header, but you can also just do control space, and then anywhere in this design environment, you can autocomplete a design object's name and jump to it. So there's no faster way to get around now. We build Appian apps ourselves in Appian for our use. So I know that when this came out, I really enjoyed it. Can't wait for you guys to get it too. Meanwhile, users, this has always been something that's done in the administration console, but we now show the users to designers right there in the design tools. There's a tab for it. So when you're making security configurations or group memberships, you can refer to that. If you do have the right access, you can edit the group attributes right there again, from the designer. You can manage documents. I believe starting in 18.1, you can manage their properties, preview files, again, right there in the design tools. And you can manage groups. And when we did that, we added the view of not just showing the group members, but why someone is a member, because there's several different kinds of group membership in Appian. You can be a name that's directly on that group, but you can also be, in this example, there's a finance group here, and so members of the finance group are indirectly members here, and that's now listed in a column. You can also have members by rule. So again, we're looking for ways to improve things, get the information you need to understand your designs. Now, making things easy isn't just cutting out steps or adding some convenience things. It's also finding ways to just require less design to get to the features you want. And it doesn't get much easier than a single-click checkbox in order to give your users an export on a record grid. Well, we did that, I think, starting in 17.4, but now all record types are supported in their record lists, so we're definitely excited about that. And then something a little subtler is the idea that for, say, entity-backed records, you can now use expressions to define the default filters as a whole. So before, people would have to go to kind of a more complex service-backed record design if they had certain kinds of row-level security. Now, the rest of the record can still be kind of simple, but then when you need that power, you can use it in the default filter in order to get the security you need. Now, building applications is one thing, but you still need to deploy them. And we're very aware that that's something we want to improve on, and been looking at a lot of ways to do that. So new in, let's see, I think 18.2, we have these options for last modified by. You can, when you're seeing what to add to a patch, say, you can now filter by the user who last modified it, both in the applications list if you want to find your application, or in the objects view. So that's really useful if, say, you and a coworker have been changing objects and you want to deploy your work but not others. So you can use that to find those. And you can view the applications which have patches. You can filter the applications list down to that. Now, the reason for that is because now we can actually patch across multiple applications. So originally we said, okay, you can export your app, then you can make patches, like change a few objects, deploy those to a different environment. Well, we realize now that, actually, sometimes I'm making a change to, say, the onboarding app, and that doesn't really make sense by itself. It needs to go along with a change to the contract management app because these are working together. I'm linking them together in some way. So now you can make a patch that contains the changes to multiple applications and push those changes all together. Of course, you can, since we're having these more complex patch scenarios, you can use this link to view patch contents before, from inspection, for example. And conflict detection is something that we've been iteratively rolling out. Starting in, I think, 18.1, it is now in all, we support all object types. So for those of you who don't know, this conflict detection is very helpful in deployment scenarios where somebody else, maybe some other team, might have modified an object on a higher environment and you didn't realize it, and so it alerts you to that before you go ahead and blow away their changes. You can see as you try to import, like, well, maybe I need to go back and figure that out. Now this one has been a long time coming. I see some happiness out there. You can now rename expression rules in 18.2. You can rename expression rules, interfaces, and the other objects listed here. Those of you who haven't been using older versions of Appian, or maybe actually even if you have, might be wondering what on earth took us so long, that this is an exciting feature that people are taking pictures of and so forth. Well, these are all objects that you refer to by name elsewhere in your applications. So you might have a single expression rule, get display username, and that's actually called from 100 different process models and record types and so on. So if you rename it, what happens? Well, this is the easy section of our presentation, so don't worry, right? Like you make that change, and we automatically are updating all of the other places that use it, so you don't have to go and dig up all of the impacted objects. And when it comes time to deploy the rename, you don't have to worry about it. The other objects don't show up as modified. You just export the object you renamed, and we take care of it on the other system as well. Couldn't be easier. So we're really excited about this. We know this has been something people wanted, and we're really happy to deliver a great experience with it, as well as a much needed feature. Also along the renaming theme here, in the expression rule designer and in the integration designer, when you rename a rule input, we realize, okay, what's the easiest thing? Like, you don't have to do anything. If you rename this input, we're going to go ahead and update the expression for you, so that we'll rename any occurrences of the thing you just renamed to the new name. So, because 99% of the time that's what you wanted anyway. So just another quality of life improvement to keep things moving, make you more efficient. Now, I know a lot of our customers are using Fitnesse, Appian for Fitnesse, to test their interfaces. So just a reminder that as we are continuing to release changes to our product, we're updating that so that your existing test scripts will continue to work no matter what changes we make to the specific HTML rendering of sale components and so on. So this is a really valuable thing for people when they want to test their interfaces. Now, I know that easy and integration aren't always things that people think of in the same sentence, without a negative maybe, but we made a big stride, I know, last year when we released the integration designer, and we've been continuing to make improvements to that. So in 18.2 actually, we have a bunch of things, fairly small things, but these are all aimed at improving your experience as you integrate with other systems. So we have native support for API keys. We'll securely store those and be able to work with those, because that's how a lot of REST APIs are secured. Better handling for documents. So if you want to send binary or multi-part data across to a service, we can support that. And for an HTTP connected system, now we can have a common base URL for that connected system, so that when you define other integrations on it, the root URL is inherited, and then you just have to define the substring that's specific to that integration. And if you need to change the base URL later, you change it in one place, it updates all of the integrations associated with that connected system. And then lastly, default test values for integration designer. This is really helpful. For those of you who don't know, this is a feature where, as a designer, you can indicate, okay, this is a common way I want to call this integration rule. So when I come back to it later, I can pull it up and see the moment you bring it up, it already has inputs ready to go that cover what you need. So you can see how it works and what it's going to return. Now, Matt mentioned this. We now have a connect system for OpenAPI. So this used to be called Swagger. It's a standard for describing how services work. And once you give us the Swagger document, you can pick. We'll give you just a list. We'll go to the system, or we'll give you the list of possible integration or operations. Pick that, and then have a guided experience. I think in the keynote they showed a box demo. So we're really excited about this, because it really makes integrating with systems that are described this way, the ever-increasing number of systems that support this documentation, it really makes that easier. Now, we really believe that Appian is a great way to build modern applications. And in 2018, we know that AI is changing what's even possible for computers and applications. And we're really excited to start bringing those capabilities to you. So one example, it's always important to go to concrete examples with AI. One example of that is human-entered text. So in Appian applications, and actually any application historically, human-entered text is usually something that you just take in, you show it to someone else, maybe you store it. But other than the length, number of characters, or the number of words, we couldn't say too much about what it meant, and so on. Well, AI is unlocking that for us, piercing the veil. It doesn't understand text the way that you and I do, and not anytime soon anyway, but it can tell us an increasing amount about what's going on, which can be really useful. Now, I've got a secret for you. Adam's not wearing the headphones, so don't tell him that I stole his slide. He was talking about charts, but what this chart is actually showing is text sentiment across a conversation. So, not only, this is a great way to see what's happening with communication. Not only can it tell you, say, last year my interactions with my most important customer were positive, now they've been trending negative, that's obviously alarming. You can even break down a particular conversation. This is in the purple is a customer, the purple line. The yellow line is a support agent, and so you can see here that as they go back and forth, conversing maybe in a chat, maybe on a ticketing system, maybe transcripts from a voice conversation, you can see that initially the customer is negative, they're having an issue of some sort, but as they work with the agent, they swing back up into the positive, right? So this is an example of AI unlocking things about what's happening on your system that previously you would have to get a human being to read this stuff in order to figure out. So really excited about this. For Appian Cloud customers in 18.2, you'll have access to text sentiment anywhere you use Appian expressions. No account needed with no third-party integration. It's just part of the Appian platform, ready to go. And that can be used in processes, in record types, interfaces, anywhere you use an Appian expression. Now, we know that there are major investments being made by the big tech companies. And so we're not particular, right? We're not opinionated about what you do. If you want to use these cognitive services that these guys are making, great. And in fact, I know a lot of you already are. And we make it really easy to connect with those in 18.2 and use them in your application. So for example, Amazon Machine Learning, which can, for reference, is a way to use wizards and visual tools to train models and invoke them. You can connect to Amazon by just providing, like, this is an Appian interface, but we're able to show you in Amazon terms, like the access key, the secret access key, the Amazon region. You pick those, you have a test button right there to make sure you filled that out correctly. And then once you want to move on and use the model, you can define your integration. We'll populate the model with or populate the dropdown rather with the models from Amazon, and then give you the inputs that you need to set up with to pass in information to get a prediction. We use this ourselves. I think that was mentioned in the keynote in our support app. I talked to the Appian employee who created that application. They were amazed at how, wow, when you wake up in the morning and you see on your to-do list, add AI to application, you're not thinking that's going to be an easy thing, but they couldn't believe how easy it was to just connect and bring in machine learning into the application. Another example, Microsoft Azure, so language understanding, or LUIS. This takes phrases like, in this example, I need food for my meeting, and extracts the notion, well, that's a catering operation, right? So this is a really great way to, when you have a lot of different operations and you already have some text about what the user wants, you can get a guess at what that is, a pretty good guess, in order to fill that out. And again, we're using now Microsoft's nomenclature. They have subscription keys and a starter key and so forth. We even give you instructions on where in the Microsoft interface to grab that stuff. And then you can pick from the available LUIS applications, and then use the Microsoft specific stuff. I mean, obviously Amazon and Google don't have a Bing spell check option that's specific to this thing. It's all set up ready for you. And lastly, Google Cloud, in addition to sponsoring this lovely developer jam today, they have natural language service that's really has a lot of really cool functionality. Google just uses an API key, so you just drop that in, test your connection, and then it provides a number of exciting capabilities. So entity discovery is pulling out people, places, organizations out of text. You can also discover the syntax of text, like whether something's an adjective or an adverb. You can categorize things into hundreds of predefined categories. And it does sentiment analysis in an interesting way. It actually can connect sentiment back to those entities, right? So if you have a paragraph that's talking about Appian and the IRS, you can see that the Appian sentiment is positive, but the IRS sentiment is maybe not as positive, right? So a lot of really cool stuff. And again, for all these things, you can, once defined, you can use these anywhere in your Appian application that's using expressions, which is basically everywhere. So, see, everybody's really excited about this. So, you can use those, use that anywhere and really improve how your applications work. So Adam's going to talk a little bit more about flexibility.
All right, thanks. All right, so rounding out our fourth pillar of what enterprise applications should be, we think they should be flexible. We think they should be Appian, actually. Let's just cut to the chase. You guys need to be running Appian, so I'm not exactly sure how to get this back. Gentlemen, can I have some help with our presentation?
So Adam, maybe you should demonstrate flexibility for us. Maybe some some yoga, you know. The party last night, we should be stretching out.
Yeah. All right, we're back. Thanks for your flexibility on that one. So Appian has always stood for freedom of choice. You have the option of running our platform on premises in your data center, and some customers do, or you can leave the driving to us and go with our cloud offering. And one of the reasons you might choose, actually we've seen customers do both. We see customers who are purely on-premise, we see customers who are in the cloud, we see customers who do a hybrid approach. They do development in the cloud and then they run production on-premise, and we've even seen a trend of customers who sometimes start with us on-premise moving to the cloud. So why they might do that is that in addition to a ton of accreditations and certifications like FISMA, PCI, HIPAA, FedRAMP, and a million that I can't remember, we continue to invest in industry-leading security for our cloud offering. The latest of which is just bring your own key, which is available in 18.2. With bring your own key encryption, you control the key that we use to encrypt and decrypt the disk that holds your business data. What that means is that when it's not attached to the actual instance running Appian, when it's off in Amazon World storage, nobody, not even Amazon employees, can look at your data. So it's just another in a long series of investments of giving you comfort, privacy, and security for your data, which is critically important to your business. But for our on-premise customers, we continue to make investments there too. Containers are really popular, not just because they have cute, approachable logos like happy whales, but because they actually allow you to kind of isolate the applications from the heterogeneous set of servers that they're running on and give them the resources they need. They allow for maximum flexibility, portability, and in 18.2 we're going to support Docker for non-production systems. We're going to provide scripts and documentation of how to install a set of Docker images, how to run them, monitor them, start them, and including patching and upgrading. And regardless of whether our customers are on-premise or in the cloud, we see a need for us to fit into how they need the Appian platform to coexist with the rest of their software applications. So that means that we need to fit into your SDLC, your application development lifecycle. And one of the ways we do that is through the Automated Deployment Manager, which is a really useful tool that has two components. The first is the Automated Versioning Manager, which basically allows the applications and patches you create in Appian to be interfaced with whatever your version control system is, whether it's Git, Subversion, or Bitbucket. And from that, we can actually create the deployment packages. You can version the individual objects, you can tag them, create the application deployment packages, and then put it through the second part, which is the Automated Import Manager, which actually does the deployment to your target system. There's three ways to do the imports with the Automated Import Manager. One is through a GUI, the other is command line, and the third and most popular for those customers who are going towards what we call customer DevOps is integrating with a continuous integration server like Bamboo or Jenkins. And in some of our customers' situations where they're highly regulated or highly controlled environments, they actually want to do deployments with no human touches in the middle. So they want to schedule them or have push-button deployments to multiple systems, and Appian can fit alongside that with tools like the Automated Deployment Manager. Another way that your application platform needs to be able to fit your needs is it has to grow with you. It has to grow as your need for Appian grows. And we continue to make investments in the scalability of the platform and test to ensure that we can meet the most critical, high-volume transaction workloads that you can throw at us. And what you can see here is that Appian has continued to evolve to take better advantage of the hardware and the footprint that you give us over the years. And in 18.2, what you see on the far right there with the extra large installation type hold your applause, I haven't told you why it's great, is that we've taken a giant leap forward in the amount of parallel processing that Appian can do. Now you can see that we can do up to 1.5 million Appian processes an hour. 1.5 million an hour. Now I should note, none of our customers actually need all this throughput right now. We know because we can see, but that's kind of the point. We're already looking ahead and investing now to make sure that as your needs grow, as your demands increase, we're already able to meet them. And finally, might be worth some applause, the web content component is probably the most flexible component that we have, which is why I put it here and not earlier. This allows you to embed any external UI inside of Appian, creating a seamless mashup for your users, making the applications richer, and allowing you to keep the data that drives those interfaces in their source system without bringing them over to Appian. It's got a really simple configuration. You just give it the URL and tell us how much space you want us to take up on the screen, and we'll bring it in to the system and you can see it. We think the possibilities for integrations through Web Content Component are pretty endless. We think you guys are going to love it. It's going to quickly become one of the most popular components that I think our customers are going to use. And I can say that with confidence because we're actually already using it ourselves. What you see here is our next generation support system that our support engineers use when they're helping you, through any issues you may have with Appian or just getting set up. And what we've done to make their lives easier is right alongside the case for any customer is you can see the possible knowledge base articles that may be used to assist in closing out that case. So with that, we're actually done. You can thank us. No, thank you for your time and attention.
Yeah, thanks guys.